warship longer than 2 football fields has combined an amphibious well deck with electromagnetic aircraft launch equipment, creating a naval architecture no operational American assault ship currently matches. Yet the real question is not whether this ship looks revolutionary. It is whether China can turn a radical arrangement of deck, hangar, power systems and amphibious spaces into a reliable vessel that works at sea. This is the Type 076 Sichuan, hull number 51. At more than 40,000 tons full load, it carries a straight, full-length flight deck, 2 compact island structures, a single electromagnetic launch lane, and arresting equipment for recovering fixed-wing aircraft. Beneath that aviation deck sits the other half of its identity, an amphibious ship designed around internal mission spaces and a stern well deck. That combination distinguishes the Sichuan from the American America class, whose aviation ecosystem is already proven with F-35B fighters, MV-22 tiltrotors and helicopters. The Chinese ship introduces catapult launch and arrested recovery to this category, but it has not yet publicly demonstrated a mature operational air wing. New architecture is one thing, routine operations are another. To understand which matters more, the finished ship has to be stripped back to the first massive sections that appeared inside a Shanghai dry dock. The story begins at Hudong Zhonghua's Changxing Island shipyard, not with a recognizable warship, but with enormous prefabricated structures. By late 2023, commercial satellite imagery showed major hull sections taking shape in the construction dock. Instead of building the vessel plate by plate in one continuous location, modern shipyards fabricate large blocks separately, then bring them together into a single hull. Each block is a structural system in miniature. Steel panels are cut, formed and reinforced with internal stiffeners. Bulkheads divide spaces and give the structure resistance against bending and twisting. Deck sections must carry not only their own weight, but aircraft operations, elevators, machinery, fuel, stores, and the repeated stress of a ship working in open water. Welding joins thousands of components, while also introducing heat, distortion, and possible misalignment. The precise steel grades and tolerances used on the Type 076 have not been publicly released. What the imagery does confirm is scale. During construction, analysts measured a deck footprint roughly in the range of 250 to 260 meters long, with a width approaching 50 meters depending on the measurement method. Whatever the measurement method, this was a very broad hull designed around aviation space. As sections rise, survey teams must keep the centerline, deck levels and adjoining faces within acceptable alignment. A small error at one block boundary can multiply by the time elevators, island modules, piping and deck equipment are installed. The ship's tall slab sides and wide rectangular upper surface gradually emerge, while cranes move modules that can weigh hundreds or thousands of tons. But the defining challenge is hidden in the shape. This is not simply a larger Type 075 with extra deck space. The hull must support an amphibious mission below, aviation movement above, and a launch system that imposes new structural and electrical demands. Before any catapult can be installed, the shipyard has to reserve the spaces, routes and foundations that will make it possible. And that is where the next stage becomes more complicated. The empty hull has to become 3 different ships at once. The Type 076's external profile is dominated by 2 islands on the starboard side. Separating them preserves more uninterrupted deck area, while allowing navigation, aviation control, sensors and exhaust arrangements to be distributed across 2 structures. The internal division of functions is not public, but the geometry is unmistakable. During assembly, the islands arrive as large outfitted modules, rather than being built entirely in place. Their position matters. They must leave clear paths for aircraft movement while maintaining sightlines across the deck. Their weight also sits high above the waterline, so structural design and stability calculations have to account for every mast, antenna, equipment room, and exhaust trunk. The flight deck is connected to an internal hangar through large deck-edge elevators. Specialist reporting identifies one on each side, a major change from earlier Chinese amphibious designs. Moving the elevators to the edges means an aircraft platform can rise or descend without occupying the center of the deck. It also creates exposed openings that must remain rigid, weather-resistant, and precisely aligned under load. Farther aft, the squared stern reveals the amphibious half of the ship. A floodable well deck allows landing craft or amphibious vehicles to move between the ship and the sea. That space requires ballast control, drainage, ventilation, and a stern gate built for repeated operation. Above it sits the hangar and aviation deck. Every cubic meter claimed by one mission reduces what remains for another. This is the first real engineering trade-off. Is the greater value in carrying more aircraft, more landing craft, more vehicles, or a balanced mix of all three? The answer cannot be read from the silhouette alone. By the time the islands, elevator openings, hangar structure, and well deck are integrated, the Type 076 finally looks distinctive, but it is still a shell. The systems that make it move, generate power, and coordinate its missions must now be threaded through spaces that are already crowded. Launching the hull does not mean the ship is finished. It means construction changes location. After the dry dock is flooded and the vessel is moved to a fitting-out berth, the work becomes less visible from outside and far denser inside. Cables, pipes, ventilation trunks, pumps, control networks and communication lines must reach thousands of endpoints. Machinery must be aligned with its foundations without creating damaging vibration. Electrical distribution must support normal ship services, sensors, elevators, pumps, workshops, and the exceptionally demanding aviation systems above. The Type 076's exact propulsion arrangement and power output remain undisclosed, so claims about named engines or precise megawatt figures would exceed the public evidence. What is confirmed is that power and electrical reliability became central objectives when the ship eventually went to sea. That begins at the key. Technicians test insulation, continuity, switching, cooling, and emergency backups. Pipe systems are pressure tested. Tanks are checked for leakage. Pumps are run through operating ranges. Steering equipment is exercised while the vessel remains secured. Software-controlled systems must exchange data without false alarms or timing conflicts. Sensors, navigation equipment, and aviation control hardware must function as one network. A cable installed incorrectly deep inside the ship may be difficult to reach after surrounding spaces are completed. That is why outfitting is not merely installation. It is installation followed by inspection, energizing, troubleshooting, and re-inspection. Meanwhile, the exterior evolves. Temporary platforms disappear. Openings are sealed. The hull receives its final naval gray finish. Deck surfaces are prepared for markings and aviation use. Equipment that once existed only as reserved space begins to appear. The American comparison becomes sharper here. The America class benefits from years of aircraft integration, deck procedures, maintenance knowledge, and a logistics chain built around known aircraft. The Sichuan is creating its ship and its future aviation concept in parallel. Does a more flexible launch system compensate for the risk of developing the vessel, aircraft, and operating doctrine at the same time? That answer depends heavily on the technology embedded in the flight deck, because the next installation is what separates this vessel from every conventional amphibious assault ship. Along the forward port side of the deck runs a single electromagnetic launch lane. During construction, satellite imagery showed a long trench approaching 130 meters, though its final functional length and performance have not been officially published. By 2026, the completed deck showed the launch track, arresting equipment, and operational markings that turned an empty rectangle of steel into a fixed-wing test environment. A conventional amphibious assault ship relies on helicopters, tilt rotors, or short takeoff aircraft using their own engines. A catapult changes the equation. It can accelerate an aircraft along a controlled path, potentially allowing fixed-wing designs that cannot perform a short rolling takeoff from this ship. Arresting wires at the aft end provide the corresponding recovery method. The attraction is flexibility. Aircraft can be designed around mission endurance, sensors or payload, rather than vertical lift machinery. Uncrewed aircraft are widely discussed as likely candidates, but the exact operational air wing has not been publicly demonstrated. J-35 fighters and named drone types should therefore be treated as possibilities discussed by analysts, not as confirmed shipboard units. Electromagnetic launch also creates a demanding integration problem. The track must be straight and flush with the deck. Control systems must deliver repeatable acceleration. Power must be generated, conditioned, and routed without destabilizing other ship systems. Cooling must remove heat. Sensors must detect position and speed. Safety interlocks must stop a launch when conditions fall outside limits. There are no cinematic bolts of electricity. Success looks almost invisible. The arresting system is just as unforgiving. Cables, deck fittings, and energy-absorbing machinery must handle the sudden transfer of an aircraft's motion into the ship. Alignment errors, inconsistent braking, or deck deformation could make recovery unsafe. Before live aircraft can be risked, engineers use inspections, instrumentation, and dead loads to prove that the hardware responds as expected. This is also the point where claims begin to outrun evidence. Some observers describe the Type 076 as a drone carrier, others as a light aircraft carrier, and official language continues to classify it as an amphibious assault ship. Which label is most accurate may depend less on the hardware installed today than on the aircraft and doctrine that appear later. One launch lane also imposes a limit. It offers a capability unavailable on the America class, but it cannot match the sortie architecture of a large fleet carrier with multiple catapults, a larger deck, and a mature air wing. The more meaningful comparison is not ship against supercarrier. It is whether one catapult can transform an amphibious platform without compromising the amphibious functions below. Installation alone cannot answer that. The system has to survive the transition from a motionless shipyard to a moving, vibrating, and salt-covered vessel at sea. Testing begins before the ship leaves the berth. Mooring trials allow engineers to energize systems while shore support remains close. Propulsion machinery can be run under controlled conditions. Electrical loads can be increased. Pumps, steering gear, communications and emergency systems can be checked repeatedly, while teams still have direct access to shipyard equipment. Then the ship must move. On November 14, 2025, the Sichuan departed Hudong Zhonghua for its first navigation test. Tugboats guided the enormous hull away from the berth before it proceeded to the assigned waters. The three-day trial focused on the reliability and stability of power, electrical and other systems. It returned on November 16th, after official reporting said the planned results had been achieved. That language is deliberately broad. A builder's trial does not prove full combat readiness or complete aviation capability. It verifies that the platform can begin a longer test program. Engineers monitor temperatures, vibration, shaft and steering behavior, generator loading, network faults, and the response of auxiliary systems. Any defect can send the vessel back for adjustment before the next voyage. The critical tests become harder as the program advances. Speed and maneuvering loads increase. Systems operate for longer periods. Equipment is tested in combinations rather than isolation. The deck, islands, and hull experience wind, spray, vibration, and flexing that cannot be reproduced perfectly at the quay. This is where the Type 076 stops being a shipyard object and begins to reveal whether its systems work together. Yet even successful propulsion trials leave the largest question unresolved. Can its aviation architecture operate safely and repeatedly under real maritime conditions? The next voyages move beyond proving that the ship can sail. They begin proving what kind of ship it can become. By April 2026, official reporting said the Sichuan had completed several trial voyages before departing Shanghai for cross-regional experiments and training in the South China Sea. Longer voyages expose the ship to varied conditions, while multiple systems and platforms are tested together. By July, public imagery showed a substantially completed flight deck with the electromagnetic launch system, arresting gear, and markings installed. That is a major construction milestone, but it is not the same as publicly demonstrated aircraft qualification. Formal commissioning timing, the final air group and routine fixed-wing operations remained unresolved at the time of this script. That uncertainty defines the comparison with the America class. The American ships lack electromagnetic catapults, but their aircraft, crews, maintenance systems and deck procedures already operate as an established ecosystem. The Type 076 possesses a novel physical arrangement whose ultimate value will depend on testing, aircraft integration, and sustained reliability. So which navy is ahead in this category? The answer changes with the metric. One side has mature operations, the other has introduced a new combination of amphibious access and catapult aviation. The engineering is impressive, but the operational proof is still being written. The Sichuan's production story therefore does not end when paint covers the hull or when the ship crosses open water. It ends only when steel, electrical power, flight deck machinery, aircraft and crew function as one repeatable system. Until then, the Type 076 remains what its construction reveals most clearly. Not a finished revolution, but an exceptionally ambitious machine entering the hardest phase of becoming real.